Warning, this web TV show has been created by a radical warrior man for modern radical warrior men. If you are not a warrior male who is ready to be liberated or easily offended or generally just a pussy, save yourself now and stop this life-liberating video immediately. Although created for warrior men, warrior women are always welcome.
Hey everybody, this is Garrett J. White, the master coach, mentor, and creator of the Warrior 90-Day Challenge, where I train today's modern male warrior entrepreneurs on the art and science I call the Warrior's Way to having it all. For more training just like this and to take a deeper dive into the process of how to have it all as a warrior today, check it out today for a free 4-part video training at wakeupwarrior.com. In today's episode number 7, we're going to be having 3 conversations. Conversation number 1 is how to be fascinating today and how being fascinated gets you paid. Conversation number 2 is your misunderstanding about listening. And conversation number 3 is how to listen for what is not being said. Welcome to episode number 7. Let's get started now. How to be fascinating. Seriously, fascination itself is something that we are all striving for. Have attention in the game, particularly when it comes to running your business. Particularly when it comes to being a powerful partner in a relationship we call marriage. To be a person who absolutely inspires others to move forward. Whether that's your kids, your aunts, your uncles, your friends, your neighbors, the gas station attendant, or the lady at the local grocery store. The reality is we live in a generation today. We live in a time and an age in which fascination and the fascination factor changes your opportunities and the possibilities for you to create. But what is it about you and I that makes us fascinating? Is it the fact that we have such great stories to tell and we've got such great journeys to talk about? Is it that we have lots of skills to share with the world? Is it that we have lots of information that will help people become better? Is it that ultimately our capacity to stand in power and lead people through our preaching and teaching? Well, hell, just like this video, I'm going to have you consider that it might be something different. I'm going to share a quick story to help you understand what I meant. Here a couple of weeks ago, I was having a conversation with a person. This individual, after being with me for over 1 hour, roughly about 70 minutes of conversation. During that conversation, I wanted to test the fascination factor. And so I used principle number 1 of being the most fascinating person in the world. I asked this individual questions. I then applied the second principle of being the most fascinating person in the room. I asked even more questions. And then I went to the big daddy of them all, step number 3 of becoming the most fascinating person in the room and in a conversation. I asked even more questions. By the time we were done with this conversation, I think I had spoken for less than 5 minutes. Now I get that that sounds absolutely ridiculous in the fact that I'm sitting here preaching and teaching and going all kinds of crazy here on this video. But I was sitting there and literally had spoken for less than 5 minutes. And the words that I did use were only questions. A few days later after this conversation, an individual who was a mutual friend of both of ours came to me and said, so-and-so said that was the most inspiring conversation they've ever had. And that they felt like your interaction and your exchange was the most powerful thing they had ever experienced. And I sat back and I thought, the most fascinating man in the room. Yet in 70 minutes, I said nothing. I literally said nothing. I just asked questions. So one of the things I'm going to have you consider today, warrior, is that to be the most fascinating man in the room, be the most powerful person in the room, often requires you to do more listening, and that listening comes on the wings of asking more questions. Conversation number 2, which really comes from what you do based upon number 1. Oh, wasn't that just so much fun? So one of the things I'm going to have you consider, warrior, here in conversation number 2 is this, that to be a listener today upon the wings of asking questions, which comes from the first conversation we had in today's weekly TV show. The one thing I'm going to have you consider is that listening itself has been misunderstood. That see, you and I, our misunderstanding of talking and our misunderstanding of listening has caused the biggest and most profound distinction about why your brand doesn't work, your fascination factor doesn't get you paid, and why ultimately people are not being led and inspired by you at a level that they could. Consider this. Most people consider talking to be what? Active conversation. That I'm actively speaking at you. Here we go. Speaking at you, let me show. And that listening is something that we do passively. Now, I don't know if you've experienced this, but in my marriage, here's how it goes down. When I am passively listening, here's what's really going on. I'm sitting and I'm going, But in my mind, I'm thinking, there's a whole bunch of stuff that has nothing to do with what my wife is saying. When I passively do anything, I show up like a pussy. And when I passively show up like a pussy in my mind or in my heart or in my life, what ends up happening is the results that show up for me come in a weak way. I'm going to have you consider that in today's game, in today's modern world of modern warriors just like you, that your capacity to actively listen to those around you is going to give you more power than your ability to actively speak. Now, a few episodes ago, I talked about this game of space. And I said that space itself was ultimately the power that you and I had to be able to hold the energetic vibration around ourselves and around those we're in communication with in a way that allows them to see more possibilities than they could before the space was available. When you become an active listener, meaning your intention is truly focused on listening to the words that your wife is saying, listening to the words that your children are speaking, listening to the words that your prospect and your clients are asking you, listening to the words and actively engaging with space and presence to the conversations that you engage in. When you do this, you change the script. And the words that you do say become more powerful. And the words that you don't say become more powerful. And your listening becomes something of an active experience. Instead of something where I'm sitting back and saying, "Aww," it becomes something where I am leaning forward. I'm stepping into, I'm having the experience into the game of listening. So the summary here in conversation number 2 is simply this. Create space by getting present. Second, stop passively listening and start actively engaging in your listening with those that you're engaged with. All right, conversation number 3, and this one is important to me, and it's going to be important to you, which is simply this. There are 2 kinds of listening that go on in the world today. There's a listening that we have with our physical ears, and as we sit as active listeners, as warriors engaged in holding space, listening to those that we're around, and we only listen for the first language of conversation, which is what we hear with our physical ears, we will be limited at best. Here is why. Most people that you talk to every single day are not honest. Most people that you talk to every day can't be honest. Most people that you talk to every day don't even know that they're not being honest. What I mean by this is this. Most individuals in their true desires and their true wanting and their true searching for life, it sits as something suppressed and in the subconscious mind. So when you ask an individual what they want, they tend to give you the first thing that comes to their mind. But the first thing that comes to their mind is not ultimately what they really want. When I said an example in my marriage, what I wanted was more sex. What I really meant was I wanted more connection. For 9 years of my marriage, I didn't know this is what I wanted. I sat there constantly believing that somehow if I had more sex, this would equal more fulfillment and more connection with my wife. What I came to find is that when an individual took me deeper and deeper and deeper into what I really wanted, when they went beyond simply listening to the words I was saying, which was, I want more sex, I want more sex, I want more sex, I want more sex, and they said, what do you want beyond what you say you're wanting? See, they began to listen beyond what I was saying. They began to hear a different desire. And warrior, you and I, we are around people every single day. We're around individuals every single day, looking to us to lead them, looking to us to guide them. And if you sell out and you listen to simply what they're saying that they want and the words that they're using, you miss out. But see, I want you to also understand that as a warrior, if you can't hold space, brother, if you can't hold the space in the world that you personally operate in, your capacity to listen will become diminished. And the kind of listening I'm talking about is a spiritual listening. The kind of listening I'm talking about is a divine intuition that comes through you, brother. I'm talking about the ability and the capacity to see the unseen, to feel the unfelt, to hear the unspoken. Be in a conversation with your spouse and to have her say X, and for you to understand there is a deeper meaning behind the words that she's saying. Be able to listen to a prospect or a friend or a colleague or a family member who is speaking from their darkest and deepest pains, and yet the words that they say are not saying the whole story. There is something beyond the story. Today's leaders are required to listen beyond the words that are being spoken, to listen beyond the pain that is being expressed, to the truth beyond that pain. It requires you to become content and connected with your own truth, To be able to look yourself in the eyes, in the mirror, and know that this is truly what you want. Whether this wanting is in your body, whether this wanting is your marriage, whether this wanting is in your business, whether this wanting is in your relationships with your significant others, whether this wanting is ultimately in your bank account is irrelevant, but what I am here to tell you is this. The only possible way for you to acquire what you want is to begin listening for what is the desire behind the wanting. The most powerful influencers in the marketplace today, both in marketing and sales and persuasion, the most powerful fathers and husbands in the marketplace today are those who listen beyond the words that are being spoken. The marketers that listen beyond the words that are being spoken. The leaders that listen beyond the words that are being spoken. And so, brother, that is my challenge for you as we wrap it up episode 7 here in the Wake Up Warrior TV series. What is it going to take for you to become the most fascinating man in the room? By asking more questions. What's it going to take for you to start understanding that listening itself is an active conversation? Number 3, what is it going to take for you, brother, to start listening for the words beyond the words that people are speaking to you? Alright, so as we wrap up here, episode number 7 with Wake Up Warrior TV, I want to thank you for being here again in this conversation as we dive deeper into the ideas and concepts that create the most powerful modern male warrior entrepreneurs in the marketplace all over the world who are standing for truth, standing for power, and standing for a commitment in today's game of having it all. Like I start off today's episode, if you are ready to go deeper as a warrior, if you are ready to have it all, check out a free 4-part video series at wakeupwarrior.com. I can promise you that these videos have the power to transform everything about your life. Go check it out today at wakeupwarrior.com. For the rest of you that got value from this video, guess what? Share it up. Share it with your fellow warriors around the world. Share it up on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, Google+. Bing! And let yourself be settled in to the modern game of the modern warrior we call the Warrior's Way. Until next week, episode number 8, I want you to remember that power in today's marketplace as a modern warrior comes down to the simple formula of authenticity. Be real, get raw, stay relevant today.
Oh yeah, you know what to do now. Check it out at wakeupwarrior.com for a free 4-part video training series now.